What's happening, people? I'm DJ Grace, and this is my second ever live stream. What's up, David Williams? Thanks for joining me, man. So in today's live stream, I'm gonna make this track again from scratch. So I just quickly put this together about an hour ago. And in today's video, I'm gonna explain how to do it. Alright, so as you can hear, we've got the pad, we've got the shaker, got some lovely sounds, a couple of breakbeats all chopped up, and the Reese bass. So, just going to start a new project. And I'll click save on that one. And you can see me literally do this from scratch. So first thing we need to do is just put up the BPM to 140. And I usually like to get rid of whichever tracks I'm not going to start with, you know. So actually I'm just going to start with one audio track. And David, let me know if you can hear me on the mic. Let me know if the levels are all good. Just gonna hit save as and call this Airwaves tutorial. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is just get the think break and bring that in. And I'm just going to chop up some bits of the think break. So let me just turn this down a bit. Turn that down to like -8. And let's have a listen. So as you can hear, we've got the 4 different bits of the think break, and then you've got that shuffle bit at the end. So what I want to do is basically make my own little loop out of this with basically not having the vocal bit in, you know. So I'm going to just choose a couple of the 2, you know, you've got the 4 main break bits, and I'm going to choose 2 of them. So I'm going to choose this one. Right, so it stops there. Just Command and E to slice that out. And I'm just going to copy that and put it over here. Now, just turning off warping. And this is the, if I turn on the metronome, you can hear the project tempo. So obviously we need to make it faster. So I'll just turn warping on, make sure it's on complex, and then if you just grab the end of the audio clip and hold down Shift on the keyboard and just drag that so that it's 1 bar long. Let's have another listen. Sounds good to me. Now, obviously, as you can hear, that one does have the vocal sample in, but it's the kick that I wanted of this one. Alright, now there's another one where it's basically good apart from the kick, and I think it's this second one here. Alright, so just slice it there, slice it right at the end, copy this, and I'm going to bring this over here, paste it right next to the other one. Let's just make sure the start and end point are good. So the start's alright, end point. Just get rid of that last bit actually. Now, if I just hold down shift and drag it so that it's 1 bar long, and let's have a listen. Turn that metronome back on. Now if I just take the kick of this think break, copy it and put it on this one, let's have a listen. So that's a pretty decent little loop of the think break, but without any of the little vocal sample in it. So I'm going to need to turn this into one big audio clip. So if you just click the first one and hold down shift, click the second one and then press Command and J, that consolidates it or turns it into a single audio clip. Then you can right click it and slice to a new MIDI track and just make sure it's on 8th notes and click OK. And I'll just get rid of the original think break. You've got the drum rack down here with the slices in it. So if you just click this little button over to the left, that allows you to see the sample that's in each one. And what I'm going to do is just go through and make sure that each slice and each sample is clean at the start and end, especially the end point. Sometimes you get them where it's sort of bringing in the next slice, like for example this one at the end. I don't know if you can see that, but let's bring it a bit further over. Well, you can't really see it. Let me just get rid of the webcam for a sec. I'm not even sure if you could hear me then. I hope so. Anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm just putting in the notes of this sliced up break, and this is how it sounds. All right, so let's slice up the other break. So I'm just going to go in and choose the hot pants, put that there, and then with this one, I'm just going to go straight into the slice to new MIDI track, 8th notes, press OK, and delete the original sample. I'm going to go through and clean up the breaks, clean up the different slices, make sure all the start and end points are looking good and sounding good. Oh yeah, and loop length, make sure you put it on 0. So let's just have a listen straight away. Alright, so slice 6 at the end. I'm not sure if my webcam's covering it, but basically there is a slice with a dirty endpoint where it's bringing in the next slice. Alright, just go through, clean them up. I mean, slice 11. You can have a little bit of a gap before the hit if you want, sort of creates a bit of swing, but obviously don't go too far with it. Alright, so let's have a listen to this. Now, one cool thing that you can do is actually, if you've already got a MIDI clip, let's say you've already chopped up a break, right? And you've got this MIDI clip with all this choppage on it. Oops, not that one. I mean this one. So you've done all this chopping. You've arranged all these slices. Now you've got another break. One cool thing that you can do is just hold down Alt, drag that MIDI clip to the other break, and let go. And now let's have a listen to the hot pants. And together. Alright, so it's a little bit of a basic break looped around for a couple of bars. Let's delete this original one. And what I'm going to do is I'll just simplify these names. Think hot pants is fine. And I'll just group them together. So click one, hold down shift, click the other one, Command and G to group them together. And then I'm just going to call this breaks. And one thing that I like to do is I use capital letters for groups and lowercase letters for normal tracks, and that way you can tell at a glance whether it's a group or whether it's a normal track. All right. So anyone who's actually been watching the videos on my channel, you will have seen that there was a video I did about sampling the Reese bass and where it originally came from. And there was this clip of Ray Keith, and he's going on about where he got it from. And basically he sampled it from a guy called Kevin Saunderson from the 80s. And in that video I showed sampling it, I showed making it on a wavetable synth. So if you're interested in that, just go and have a look on my channel and you'll see the video there. But I wanted to show you this technique that you can do. It's a very cheeky way of just recycling sounds. So what you can do is, if you just go to where your projects are, for example, this folder here is full of Ableton projects, and one of them is called the Reese tutorial project, right? And within that, you've got the live set, and that's what your live sets look like, okay? Reese tutorial 2 was the one where I demonstrated it, and then these are the different tracks within that Ableton live set, right? And what you can do is just grab that, drag it into there, and now you've recycled that track. Obviously we're going to be using different notes, so you can just delete the MIDI clip, but now you've got that sound. And in this case what we've got is Kevin Saunderson's track inside the simpler, and I've sampled just the right part and sort of looped it and everything, so it's ready to go. So I can just highlight a different area and Shift, Command and M to create a MIDI clip. And let's put in some notes. In fact, I'm just going to turn on the computer keyboard and play it a little bit. Alright, so it went like that. No. Then it does a big long C. Well, I think it goes. That E. How about this? Now, with the slices all on different pads of the drum rack, one thing you can do is, if you decide that a certain slice needs EQing, you can just drag an EQ8 directly onto that slice. For example, this slice 2 here, and you can decide that you want to cut a load of bass out of that one slice. Alright, now I'm going to add the pad. So what I'm going to do here is just go to Instruments and drag a Simpler in there. And then I've got a pad sample in mind, which is called Ruben. What is it? Ruben Pad 7 C4. You can just literally type it in. Ruben Pad 7 C4. When you open the folder, it should be right there. Alright, and then just create a MIDI clip with, highlight the area, Shift, Command and M to create a MIDI clip, and to be honest with you, I think I'm going to have to tighten up that beginning a bit because it's taking too long to come in. But obviously don't want any click or anything, so bit of attack. So this is just going to be a 2-note pad. E and G. Now what I'm going to do to make this pad more interesting, I'm just going to go to the audio effects and bring in a few different effects. So one of them will be the hybrid reverb, and I'll just put it on a plate reverb. Just choose any one. There's all this A1, A2, B. I just usually like to just choose a random one and see how it sounds. Let's have a bit of chorus. And a bit of delay. How's that sounding with the drums and bass? Now, the next sound I'm using is like here's one I made earlier scenario, but it's called Drippy Cave. So if I go to Instruments and type in Drippy Cave, now open up Instrument Rack, there it is. Let's put that in. And I'm just going to, again, create a MIDI clip. And I'm starting off with an A. Is it this one? Nope. This one? Right, that one. So what I like to do is just put in one note and then duplicate it. And then with the arrows, just move it around and put it where you need to put it. Highlight all that and duplicate it and put it there. Duplicate it, and then I'm just going to move the first note. actually. So there's a C there. Nope. C there. And then with the last round, I'm going to give it the high A. Like this. And don't forget to save. So you probably all know, but if you don't know, the keyboard shortcut is Command and S. Get into the habit of pressing Command and S whenever you complete a new section. So, or you can do it more often than that. But I usually do it, I could create an instrument and put in the MIDI and then press Command and S. The great thing about Ableton is that if it does crash and you do happen to, if you feel like you've lost everything, 9 times out of 10, it's all there in the undo history anyway, and it just comes back. But there is the odd time where you try and bring it back and it's just glitching out. So anyway, let's put in some more instruments. So I've got this folder. I've had it for a while, and it's basically a guy called Andy Drudy, or Drudy. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his name, but he's basically sampled every reggae chord, and you can see here you've got the A sharp, A, B major, B minor. He's got all of them. So big up Andy Drudy or Drudy. And thank you for the free guitar samples. And I can't remember where I got them from or when. It's been a long time. It was about at least 10 years ago. So anyway, A minor. Let me drag in an A minor. And I'm going to turn it down by quite a bit. Shout out Ken. I'll have to do the MPC tutorial a different day, mate. All right, let me just duplicate that. So I'll duplicate that again. So we've got 4 of them. And then I'm going to need the C major. Now this might sound a bit whack right now, but don't worry because I'm going to layer it up with some other stuff. So let's just check the volume I turned that one down to, which was -13. Turn this one down to -13 as well. And then I'm just going to duplicate that bar 3 times. All right. Right, now I'm going to layer that with a piano to start with. So I'll just go to plugins, and I like to use the Gentleman in Native Instruments. Contact 7, go into there, and where is it? I think it's appearing on my other screen somewhere. Where is it? there it is. All right, so contact, double click the gentleman. I usually go with the basic gentleman, but there's a few different ones. And basically, I'm just going to draw in the A minor. In fact, should I just create a MIDI clip, and I'm going to need an A, probably further down. A. Alright, got that little A minor chop. Duplicate that and put it on the 4 as well, so it's the 2 and the 4, and then again, and then with the C major. And obviously need to move the middle note. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that whole track, but this time I'm going to change the instrument to a Rhodes Scarby Mark 1. So that sounds like this. Very rough. Now the thing is, all of those three together, I'm going to group them. I'm just going to call it Reggae. Alright, that's our Reggae channel. Now obviously it's in desperate need of some effects. So put an EQ8 on there, get rid of the low end first of all. Then we're going to need a reverb. No, then we're going to need the delay. Ping pong delay. Maybe a bit less feedback. And then we need the reverb. Plate reverb? No, spring reverb. And within this hybrid reverb, you've got this other tab, which is the EQ, and then you can switch it over to that and then just high pass the hell out of it, and that makes sure there's no bass in your reverb. And now would be a good time to balance these three elements of the reggae track. You might have noticed that I completely neglected to put any effects on the drippy cave. So one thing I like to do is just to choose an effect and then hold down shift and choose the last one. So you've got all three selected, right? Drag it to a different track, hold down alt and let go. And now all those effects are on the other track as well. Now obviously we might not want the exact same settings, but at least we've got an EQ, a delay and a reverb just instantly on there. Right, now you might remember at the beginning of the tutorial when I was chopping up the think break, there was 4 different main sections, and then there's also a shaker section. So, oops. What I need to do is go into Jungle Breaks, choose the think break. Right, we're going to ignore all of the drums at the beginning and just concentrate on this shaker at the end. So, just one. So, could start it there. And end it right before that one. Right there. Right, chop that off. And in much the same way as before, basically want to just turn off this warping and then turn it back on again. And it's not far off, but I just want to drag that endpoint to there, and hopefully this is on. Alright, so now it's time to do the arrangement. And what I had in mind for the intro was this think shaker with the pad. Put that there. Duplicate it. And then the pad, just move that as well. Or you can hold down Alt so you've copied it. Alright, let me unsolo. So this think shaker needs turning down quite a lot, and it also needs all of the lows and all of the mids taken out of it, so it's literally just the high end. So let me get the EQ8, put that on the think shaker, and take out a lot of the frequencies. And why have I still got this metronome on? Sorry about that. Put a reverb on there. Maybe I'll just use the normal reverb this time. So now it's time to choose how long we want the intro to be, and I think, to be honest with you, I'm just going to go with 32 bars. So I'll just move all of this stuff here. So you can just highlight everything and press Command and X to cut, and then paste it over here at bar 33. So we know that throughout all of these 32 bars is the intro, and then here's where the drums and bass come in. All right. So let me duplicate that. So we've got 16 bars here. It starts off with, that's still way too loud. In fact, the think shaker, I'm going to put that in the group with the breaks. Now is a good time to just group everything. So the Reese, it's all by itself at the moment, but it's got its own little group called bass. Right, and these three, they've got a group called Instrum. And that think shaker needs to come down to like there. So I'm just going to select the first chord of this reggae section, and I'm going to paste that there. And then I'm going to turn up the dry wet to 50%, so it sounds like this. So this is going to be automated. So let me turn off this MIDI keyboard and press A, and that brings up the automation section where you've got the red lines where you can automate your things. So after that's done its little repeat here, what I want this dry wet to do is fade down to nothing. And then this comes in. Alright, maybe not nothing. I'll fade it down to 16%. And over here at the top end it's going to be 50%. So what happens basically is this reggae bit, it just does a little teaser, comes with the 50% wet dry twice, and then it plays properly, and the automation ramps up from 16% to 50%. The question is, where does the melody start? From here? So I'll just cut out the last three chords so it just does this. And that needs to have... Wait. Alright, so it needs to ramp up to there. And it needs to be at 50% by there. And then the last three chords just disappear and it ends up like this. Alright, and then the last bit of this also does the same thing, so... And to be honest with you, I'm just going to just do the same sort of ramp with the delay. From 16, why not, all the way up to 50. And it sounds like this. Just maybe get rid of half of the last pad as well. And by the way, I don't know if you knew that, but if you happen to have chopped up a break using the slice to MIDI function, you know, you've got this sustain here, and what you can do essentially is tighten up your break just a little bit if you need to. You hear how it's shortening each slice, and it can sound very unnatural if you do it wrong, but if you happen to be layering a few different breaks, that's just one way of making it slightly less messy. And I've done nothing to the brakes yet. So I think maybe it's time for me to do something to them. So we'll start off with a glue compressor. And I like to put it on 2. You know, a 2-to-1 ratio. And then just like take off a little bit. Shout out Fernando. Thank you for tuning in, man. And I'm glad you found it. So I'm just making a bit of a 140 BPM tune today. And it's debatable whether you'd call this jungle. I like to call it, 140 jungle. It's basically the same but slower. But so far we've got the breaks, chopped up a couple of breaks. We've got the Reese bass. And then I've got the various instruments, including this pad, which I'm just going to rename as pad. We've got this, I'm just going to call this melody. This reggae group, which is basically a load of three different instruments. One of them is basically recordings of guitar chords, which sounds like this. We'll just call that chords. And then we've got a contact piano. And then the third one is Rhodes. And all together, I just called them reggae, and it sounds like this. So obviously I need to duplicate that a few times. So we've got at least a 16 bar section of it. Shout out to Better. These headphones are the Sennheiser HD600s, and they are basically an open back design. So to be honest with you, they have pros and cons. They are really accurate in the mid range and sound great, and they're very they have very accurate sound. However, they do have pretty weak bass. So, and obviously, if you were going around town on public transport wearing them, you'd hear everything, and they'd hear you. They'd hear your music. So, for that reason, I like to use these on the stream because I can hear myself talking, And I don't know about you, but when you're talking with some noise cancelling headphones or some that properly block your ears, I just find it weird. So I wear the open back ones on when I'm doing YouTube. I also have these ones. They're called Audio Technica ATH M50X, and they are my closed back headphones. I use them for DJing, and I also use them for when I'm producing and I want to hear how the bass turned out, because I can't really hear it on these ones. So I was thinking about a little fill here. You know, maybe just the amen break. So could be fun to just use a different amen clip that I never use. So let's have a listen to some difference. Like, for example, this Jungle sample pack has loads. Actually, let me just turn this down a bit. Yo, shout out inside. I actually have been using real phones, and I loved it. I've got the free trial, so you can only register one pair, you know. And I thought I'd register the Audio Technica ones and just use them with it. And it really, they did sound different, you know. They've got less of a hyped top end when using real phones. And less bass, but then, you know, I've been reading about it and people say you should aim for the Harman curve. So I put the Harman curve on, which just added the bass back in, and it feels a bit weird to sort of EQ the bass out of your headphones and then EQ it back in again. And it's like, what am I playing at here? And if anyone's interested, you know, I might actually do a review of real phones on this channel. I'm not sure how long my free trial has left on it. I'm not going to open the app right now because it might mess with the stream, but if I've got a few days left, I might record a real phones review using the Audio Technica if anyone's interested in seeing it. Maybe that one. I just need a little 1 bar fill, so let's have a listen. And I'm going to turn it down quite a bit. Cut out everything and just go. What about if I put it onto repitch? Actually, I'm going to use this one. Turn it right down, repitch. Or not. I've never heard of the Olo, but I'll definitely check them out, man. Right now, I don't know if you saw, but I just reviewed some new speakers and they were not cheap, so I won't be buying any headphones anytime soon. But to be honest with you, the Sennheiser HD 600 that I'm wearing now, they are legendary studio headphones that have been used by countless people, and actually these ones used to belong to a BBC audio engineer, so they've been used professionally, and now they're on my head on the live stream. So this is what we got so far. We've got the pad, we've got the Think Shaker. Probably going to have to come up with some little sound effects that come in to make it more interesting. And we've got this reggae bit that comes in. "16 bars in, everything breaks down." So what I was thinking is, I'm going to duplicate the think break, and I'm going to call one of them intro think. Alright, and then that's going to come in here. Just twice. I'll get rid of the rest of it. And then so this intro think is going to be identical to the normal think track. And then I'm going to use the auto filter EQ and filters, auto filter, just put that on there, and I'm going to get rid of all the low end and then maybe automate this. I'm still not really happy with the way the think break is chopped. That's better. Alright, so let's do some automation. Filter type, no. I want the frequency. Frequency, if you just click on it, then the red line changes to the control that you want to automate. So let's zoom right in on this. Maybe make it go down a bit first, and then here go right up. Actually, the shaker should go. And actually this should start right up here. No. Thank you, Better. All right, so I want this to have some delay at the end of it, and I've got this effect that I've had for absolutely ages called Jethro DJ FX. Just going to chuck that onto the intro think, and this one fade to grey. I'm just going to turn that up at the end here, so it goes like this. Oh, that was too much. Actually, it's the auto filter that's gone too far now. So I'll just make that go to maybe there. Wait. Fade to grey needs to go way further up. There we go. I think the reggae sound needs more reverb. Oh, that could also be automated, you know? It could go down a bit by the middle and then just go right up again. See, this is the wet and dry of the hybrid reverb on that reggae sound. And basically, I usually use a bit of automation, but I've been thinking recently I should just automate more. Just automate like loads. Every track should have at least a couple of things just for more modulation and more variety in the track, you know? I want a C major as well. I just thought maybe it could just have the chord there once just in the middle for a bit of variety halfway through it. Maybe here. All right, so that's 16 bars now. Perhaps it should do something different with the break. So we've got, you know, in the first part of the break, it's going, you know, kick, hat, snare, kick, hat, snare. So it's doing that sort of halftime thing. And then now we're into the second 16. So I was thinking maybe it could be a bit more of a normal, like, you know. I'll give this a different colour, so we know it's changed. And then, as I was showing you before, for anyone who wasn't here, basically, there's, you know, pros and cons of chopping your breaks in audio or chopping them in MIDI. But one amazing pro of chopping them in MIDI is that now that I've just done that pattern for the think break, right, all I have to do is select that MIDI clip, drag it down onto the hot pants break and hold down the Alt button, and it creates an exact, you know, it copies the MIDI clip to here. But listen now. Instant choppage, you know? So that's amazing. Imagine, obviously I've just done a couple of bars there, but imagine you just painstakingly, you know, programmed in all of the MIDI notes for 16 or 32 bar section, and then you're like, oh, now I have to chop up the hot pants break. Well, you can literally just copy the MIDI clip onto the other break, and it just plays the slices for you. So it's amazing. All right, so how about the bass? So we'll see how the new section sounds with this bass. Or we could just do a different bass. That Amen fill sounds weird. So I'll just get the... I thought the Amen fill sounded a bit muddy. Maybe OTT. I don't know if you guys are familiar with OTT, but it's basically a preset for the multi-band compressor. And it makes things sound pretty mad sometimes. It definitely brings out a lot of the top end. So if you've got something that sounds muddy, I'm not going to play it on 100% first, but let's just listen to how it sounded before. Now let me bring up this amount. We'll try 30 something. So it's sounding very squashed, and it's also bringing out the top end. All right, here's 66% and 100%. Now, I never use it on 100%, usually 30 something, you know, just to compress and bring out the top end. So here's a before and after. That's with it. And here's the before. It definitely did bring out a bit of the highs, make it sound slightly less muddy. I mean, it's just a fill, so it doesn't really need to have any sub bass in it. audio effects. Just going to grab an EQ8, whack that on the Sonic Amen, get rid of. Oh, that low end, but I was just thinking, is it better to put that before the OTT? Inside, I'm from a town called Macclesfield originally, but I've been living in Barcelona for a long time, so obviously I didn't lose the accent. And it's not really a Yorkshire accent, but someone else said that on in the comments of another video. Where are you guys from? Put where you're from in the chat. So as you can hear, we're building up with the reverb and delay. Ah, no way. I think I've heard of Richmond. Been to Yorkshire a few times. My brother used to live in Leeds. Yes, Boomerang. Shout out the Ecuador crew. Alright, so if any of you have been watching my channel, you know how I like to do the 808, but I'll just explain it again for the people who are new here. So first thing you need to do is just go to Instruments, get the Simpler, put that in there, and then type in 808 and go to where your samples are, and you are going to see just the folders that have that sample in, which is amazing, you know. And then I like to use this super dope one. Now, what I usually do is put the tuner after it. If it's a new sample, I put the tuner there, but I've used this one so many times that I know where to put the, you know, where to tune it to. But if you don't know, just drag the tuner there and then turn on your MIDI keyboard and you can play the 808, and I'm sorry if that's really loud. You can play the 808 at all different pitches, and you can see in the tuner what note you're playing. All right, now an A on your computer keyboard is actually a C in the musical keyboard. All right, so go to Controls at the top right of the Simpler, and you're going to see Transpose and Detune. Now what you want to do is transpose it and detune it until when you press the A on the computer keyboard, it's a C. Now you can see I'm almost there, but I need to also use this detune to get me properly to C. So you can see it's bang on. So I was thinking just a solid A, but I'm going to have to get rid of the first note of the Reese. Just to start off with a solid A, all right? Not that one, go down. That one. So I'm just going to put the saturator on it. So what I like to do with the saturator is just turn down the output first and turn up the drive to roughly the same amount, you know, and sometimes as much as 20 dB. And let's have a listen. I mean, it's a lot. What you can do is either use less or use the wet dry. And then there's also these different types. You've got analog clip, soft sine, medium curve. What I like to do sometimes is put it on quite an aggressive one, but then less on the dry wet. Also, one thing you can do is turn up the attack a bit, and that takes off that initial kick of the 808 and stops it clashing with your kick of, well, the kick of the break. What about if it goes doom doom? And I was saying in one of my other tutorials that if you have two notes with this 808 that are really going into each other like that, it kind of causes a click. So what you want to do is pull one of them back and just leave a bit of a gap like that, and then it should take away the click. Alright, let me chop out that C of the Reese bass. Now this second section, you know, the first one is just drums and bass. Now in this second section you can feel free to reintroduce some of these instruments. For example, this pad could come back in. And then obviously when it comes to the last bar and it comes in with that amen fill, just get rid of the pad there. And maybe this little chop could come back in again halfway through, like this. Could do it twice. Now, I think that the Think shaker needs compressing. What we're going to do here is go to Dynamics, Compressor, put that there. Wait, play it from here. Compress the crap out of it. I'm also going to draw for the drum bus, put that on it. I always like to turn it down a bit first on the trim, and then drive it a bit. For me, that Think shaker, it's just a bit too heavy on the transients. I like to squash it down a bit. Don't know if any of you guys have seen, there's a clip online of Ninja Man, and he's being interviewed and he's talking about having like 20 different baby mother, and then he's like, real bad man. I was thinking, just that, real bad man. And I have to apologize. I created the stream, you know, and it was waiting. You know, what's it called? You create it in advance, and then obviously at 8 o'clock it goes live. So I go into OBS and start clicking the go live button at 8 o'clock, and it just wouldn't work, and I had to create another one. So my apologies if anyone was waiting in the other one or didn't realize that this one was happening. But basically, I started this stream off, and I'd already made the tune to basically to this level, and then I just started a new one and redid it all so I could show you what I've done. And if you weren't here from the beginning, then you'll be able to watch this all back and just watch me create this tune live on the airwaves. And for that reason, you might have noticed I called it Airwaves Tutorial. Alright, so the third section, gonna need to bring something else in, so how about the Apache break? I'll just turn it down quite a bit, and it sounds like this. Actually, that's annoying, look. Why does it start a bit in? Anyway, it sounds like this. Alright, so I'm going to cut it there, right at the beginning of that kick there. Command and E to cut it. Click the bit you don't want and delete it. And obviously there's that annoying bit at the beginning, so I'll get rid of that and just... So what I'm doing is I'm holding down Control and dragging, and that allows you to sort of not be snapped to the grid, and then I will snap it to the grid. So move it over there so it's on the grid. Now I'm gonna go back into it and click warp, and then I'm gonna go out here and hold down shift and just drag the end so that it's 2 bars long, and hopefully that's on beat now. Put the warp markers around it. Shout out Hakeem. I have to say, it's a difficult one. It's really difficult, but I know that Hot Pants is up there. The Think Break, you know, I'm basically using them here. I couldn't really pick a solid top 3, but I'd say the Hot Pants and Think Break surely must be in it. I'd say I wouldn't choose the Amen just because it is really played out at this point. And I've got one break that I like to use, and I don't even know what it's called. And it was in the sample pack called Breakbeat Paradise. And my name for it is the Sharper Break. So you might have seen, I've definitely used it in a tutorial on this channel. The Sharper Break is one of my favourites. Anyway, yeah, the Apache is a sick break because you get kicks, snares, but you get the bongos in there as well. And one thing I could do is literally just drop, you know, before I was just saying, if you just drop the MIDI clip onto a different break, It's worth a try, right? Drop that onto the Apache and see how it sounds. Let's hear how it sounds with the others. No, actually, it should be the first pattern. This one, it's like sort of alternating, right? So it goes back to the first pattern. The question is, should it be layered with the hot pants? Should it be layered with the think? Or should it be all three? So here is, no. Here is the hot pants break and the Apache together. And then adding in the think. I think they all sound clean enough together. Obviously, some EQ is needed, but they're working well enough, to be honest. So let me just bring in the EQ8. Do any of you other guys have a YouTube channel? If you do, just put your channel name in the chat and I'll subscribe. Alright, so what we've got so far, you know, from the drop, we've got drums and bass in 16 bar section 1. So you know these sections like this, for example, I'm going to call that a section, 16 bars, followed by the little amen fill at the end, alright? And it goes into section 2, right? Now section 2 has the pad. And then halfway through section 2, we introduce this thing again, the little reggae. But so far, the melody hasn't really been playing during the drop section, so I think that might need to come in now with the Apache. And that 808 should definitely be in the bass section. So amen, think, Apache. Basic choices, but timeless. Well, I have to agree. They're all amazing breaks. They're all kind of overused for a reason, right? Because they just sound so sick. And the guy that played the amen break, it's just like, I wonder if he knew how great his drums sounded on that day, or whether he just thought it sounded like a normal drum kit. So this needs bass. Which bass shall we go with? Should it just be Reese? Maybe the Reese, but a different pattern. I'd play a lower C, but I'm concerned of whether that can even be reproduced by people's speakers. So let's do a little bit of analysis. Spectrum analysis. So let's have a look at the notes of this Reese on the spectrum analyzer. There's sort of the undertone there, and yeah, it's going. If I play a low C, it's going down to 31 hertz. So probably not the best idea. Let's put it back up. So in this section, so I'm wondering if I should bring in the full reggae thing back in like this, along with the Apache. No, it's... Why have I put it there? This, but obviously I don't want that ramp up thing to happen quite so much. Oops. Turn off the keyboard. Press A for automation. And which one is it? So it's the... We've got the delay ramping up. No? Perhaps the delay should just be only at about 22%. And the reverb? Possibly less as well. It sounds like this. That's a lot going on. I think I need to choose whether I ditch the melody or ditch the reggae thing. To be honest, I'll just ditch this. This can only come in during the intro and the breakdown. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices, you know what I mean? So you might want to chuck in 3 different melodic instruments at the same time, and then you play it and it sounds... So Inside saying Gregory Coleman, the drummer that played the Amen break, died homeless and broke. That is really sad. Was it him that got the Kickstarter? One of them. One of the legendary, I think that was that Clyde Stubblefield. They did actually raise up some money for him on Kickstarter. So at least he got paid something for the millions of people that have sampled his drums. So yeah, anyway, going through, we've got 16 bar section number 1, just drums and bass. The second one, the pad comes in, and also this sort of skank with loads of delay on it. The third one, the melody. Then the fourth one probably should be pretty bare bones. Was it a fundraiser for Gregory? I hope he got something. So we're going to go back to section 4. I'm going to get rid of the pad. But this is like the second bass style that's got the 808. Oh. So I guess the money went to Gregory Coleman's family. Well, big up all the legendary drummers that ended up getting sampled in the jungle era. And there's this thing called acid wind. And some of you may have heard of it. Some of you may not have. Or maybe it's actually just a made up phrase that I think is a bit more widespread than it really is. But basically what it is if you get a white noise sample, I really hope I've got a white noise sample here. Right, let me turn down the monitoring on this because these are annoying sounding. Right, that'll do. So, what we need is, I'll just put that there for a sec. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to get a simpler. Simpler. Alright. Instruments. In fact, let me just look for it. So it's there, the simpler. I'm going to put the white noise into the simpler. And it's just an absolute block of audio. Maybe I should put a bit of a tack on it so it doesn't click when it comes in. Right, I'm going to turn the MIDI keyboard back on. Now, before I play this, let me turn this down. And I was saying, so what is acid wind, right? It is a white noise sample with loads of effects on it and a filter sweep. So you might just call it a white noise sweep. You might have different names for it, but the person that taught me how to do it called it acid wind. So you've got reverb. You know, you can go over the top with these effects because you essentially want to try and make this disgusting sound more appealing to the ears. So delay, ping pong, could put some chorus on it. So let me play the computer keyboard now. Still sounding quite horrible. You know what, in this case, instead of the hybrid reverb, I'm going to choose the normal reverb. In fact, maybe I should just put it the wet and dry on 100. Right, now, get the auto filter. Put that, I like to put it before the reverb, maybe. And then. And what I'm also going to do is put an EQ8 to make sure that if I happen to go too low with it, then we're not just creating a load of horrendous sub bass. And hopefully now you can hear the effect that I'm trying to create with this. And one thing that I've forgotten to do is loop the sample. Turn on looping. And the loop can start from. Doesn't have to be all of it. Let's just see if it loops seamlessly. Yeah. So one thing you can do is just create a MIDI clip and just put in any note, and you might notice all the notes sound the same because it's white noise. Just draw a note in and put it for the entire MIDI clip so it sounds like this. Then what you can do is just click the filter of the frequency knob and just draw yourself in some automation. Right, and then you can automate it to go upwards as well, like this on the drop. Or you can put that there so that it goes. Or maybe it should end there. I think what it should do is come to a stop like there. I just kind of want it to have this sort of cutting off effect where it goes ship, 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 ship. My ears aren't good enough to go all the way up there. Yes. All right, so on the drums so far, there's literally just a glue compressor. And I've told you before that, like, did you notice how, listen to the drums? Drums are going along at a normal volume, right? You drag the drum bus in there and they instantly get much louder. Now, wouldn't you have thought that the default setting would be that the trim is down by about 5 dB so that when you drag it in, you hear the effect of it, but it doesn't just make your drums ridiculously louder. And I don't know if they've fixed that by Ableton Live 12, but I would give them some feedback, you know, but the last time I emailed Ableton, they took 3 weeks to get back to me. So it's not exactly the quickest. But we've got the drum bus, and then you may have seen on a couple of the recent tutorials that I've been using this Air Windows tape saturator. So it's called 2Tape 8. Put that on the drums. Yeah. The drum bus is an amazing device. You've got your drive there, you've got the crunch, you've got this boom, which I never really used, but I guess it would be useful for like house music and stuff. You can just instantly add bass to your kick. This transient shaper is, I could do a video just about that, you know. Anyway, this 2Tape. Now, I want to shout out the guy who makes this. I think he's called Chris from Air Windows. And he is working on a Patreon basis. So essentially, he's just making all these plugins, giving them away. And if you do have any money to offer Chris, you can just sign up to his Patreon. And this is the one that I've used. I mean, look at the folder. There's probably about 80 plugins in there. And I'm sure a lot of the other ones are good as well. But you just have to go through them, you know. But I've got 2Tape 8, and that's one that I really am using a lot. But there's a few things that I like to turn off. And I found this out the hard way. The flutter does something weird to the stereo. So he's trying to emulate, you know, when you've got a tape and you've got stereo channels, but the tape's kind of slowing down a little bit on one side. So then the two sides momentarily go out of phase, which I'm sure sounds like a real tape machine, but it's definitely not something that I want to do to my drums. So I turn the flutter all the way down. This head bump basically gives your drums, or whatever you're putting this on, a little bump of EQ at the frequency you choose. So it's head frequency. In this case, the default is 68.7 hertz. So in other words, it gives you a bump of bass in your drums. But again, I'm going to get rid of it because I don't want a bump of bass in my drums. Some of these other ones, tilt and bias and stuff, they sound a lot like... Oh, sorry, yeah, the webcam's in the way, isn't it? What should I do? Because before when I switched to a different scene, and I'm not sure if you could hear the microphone. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my webcam up here for a second. All right, but cheers for the heads up, Hakeem. So now you can see all the controls. You can see the flutter I was on about. You can see the head bump I was on about. The frequency is 68.7. Now I was just going to say that these this bias is to do with on a tape machine you've got Dolby, right? And if you watch Chris's video about to tape, he talks about Dolby and how you can manipulate that to give yourself a little bit more top end, you know, brightness, but make it sound like a tape machine. Same with shape and tilt. I'm not messing with any of them. What I'm doing is I'm turning the output down to about my 0.13. Found that out from trial and error, that if you crank the input to the max and turn the output down to 0.13, it ends up the same volume as it was, but just with a little bit of saturation. So anyway, check out To Tape 8, and if you do happen to use it and you want to give back to Chris, then you can sign up to his Patreon. And no doubt, you know, Ableton, each time they bring out a different version, there's new plugins, and I'm not sure if the newest one comes with a tape saturator, but no doubt they'll be adding that sooner or later. Yo, I was on about finishing in 3 minutes, so let's just do one more thing. So Inside R has said, if you're interested, you can use Ableton Saturator to basically get the same as an Oxford inflator. All you need to do is use the soft sine and soft clipping, 1 dB of drive and 1 dB of output. So we've got just enough time to do it. So let's go to drive and color, get the saturator. I'm going to put that on the whole instrument track. And then we're going to change this to a soft sine. And I'm going to put soft clipping on. 1 dB of drive. If you hold down shift, then you can adjust this really finely. So just hold down shift and just even still. It's difficult to get it bang on, but I've got 1.03. Turn the output down by hopefully 1.03 to match it. All right. And use a soft sine, soft clipping, 1 dB drive, 1 dB output, -1 on the output, and then play with the dry and wet. So apparently that's the same as an Oxford inflator. So what it's really doing is something so subtle that it's emulating the analog circuits of a mixing desk. Pretty interesting. Thank you for the tip. Here we go. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's been watching the stream. Everybody who tuned in from the beginning, everybody who tuned in from halfway. If you were somebody who just caught the end, this has been a 2-hour stream, so you can, once it's finished, it'll just get posted and you can watch it back from the beginning. And I was saying before that there's this Ninja Man clip online where he's being interviewed and he's talking about how many kids he's got, and then he just turns to the camera and goes, "Real bad man." So I was thinking maybe I could sample that. So if I end up turning this into a tutorial video for my channel, then perhaps you'll see the extra bit where I put in the vocal sample. So thank you everybody so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed today's stream. I hope you've learned something. Have an amazing New Year's Eve, and I'll be back next week with another one. Take care.